LaxFactor Podcast. What is up, college lacrosse fans? This is going to be kind of this episode has double meaning. This is technically our first Syracuse Lacrosse Podcast, episode number 1, but because it's the fall, I kind of don't want to ditch talking about some other games in the process, so this is going to double. This is going to act as episode number 1 of the Syracuse Lacrosse Podcast, and we are going to talk about Denver versus Syracuse at Cortland, but this is also going to be episode 53, 54, whichever we are at, for the LaxFactor Podcast as well, because I do want to talk about fall ball stuff. So we're going to meld these things together. Also, coming out either tomorrow or Friday, I talked to Paul Carcaterra, P-Carc himself, did a quick phone interview with Carcaterra, so I will put that out in the next day or so. I think tomorrow's Thursday, so let's say I'm going to put that out tomorrow for you guys, so be sure to come back and check that out. But I wanted to get the Syracuse-Denver scrimmage stuff up because I have highlights that I'm going to show you now. So let's get talking about that, and then we're going to get talking about fall ball in general, a couple of other games and events that went down. So, 2 legendary coaches, they decide to get together and play a fall scrimmage at SUNY Cortland, of all places. And SUNY Cortland, I'm going to start rolling stuff now. Beautiful Division III facility, and just a great place to have an event like this. Denver came in earlier in the day and did a clinic for the area kids, and that was apparently well attended, and the Denver team and coaching staff did a great job for that. Packed house, though, for the 7:30 face-off, so that was also good to see. One of the best D3 stadiums in the country. It's just about a Division I facility. You could probably call it that. Great to see number 22 take the field for Syracuse as well, with Chase Scanlan getting the start as attack, and as expected, Rafis played attack as well, and Griffin Cook gets the 3rd spot. And we've all been wondering who was going to get that 3rd spot, and Cook was the most likely. He does land it, and Cook looked great early. Rafis and Scanlan, they took some time to get settled in, but Cook looked fast right off the bat, energized from the opening faceoff and on, scored a goal early on in the first quarter, and got really, really pumped as part of that. So it was good to see Cook running around. So as we say, it's great to have a number 22 on the field again. Nick Mellon rocking number 11. At first I'm looking for Mellon and couldn't find him. It's because there's a number 11 on the field, and it is none other than Nick Mellon. He should have had it since he was a sophomore on, but granted it was taken. So it was great seeing him running around with that number. I'm a number guy, as you can tell. Right off the bat, both teams went hard. Every loose ball scrap turned into a violent altercation. That was also good to see. Both goalies looked good coming up with early saves. Porter getting it done for Syracuse, and whoever Denver had in, their numbers didn't match their roster, not at least completely, so it was hard to tell who was playing, but both of their fall goalies looked excellent. Went back and forth early, both teams getting in on action. I didn't keep score and keep track throughout, but I do know Tucker Dordevic scored his first goal in a while, and the first goal of the scrimmage on a nice dodge from up top, sweeping across the left up top. So that was excellent to see. He played early and often, Dordevic did. He got runs with his core group, who he expected to be the 1 line of mids, but he also ran with the 2 line of midfielders on a couple of occasions. Also, I'm not sure, probably just trying to get him reps, I suspect. They run Syracuse. Let me see here. Oh, and then Denver, they go on a 3-goal run after Syracuse scored first. Sam Dwindall, Jack Hanna, I love Jack Hanna, Jungle Jack Hanna, and Johnny Morocco. They each found the back of the net, and that made it 3-1, and then Syracuse started kind of climbing back, and it went back and forth the whole game. At one point, it was 7-7. I'll show you in the highlights as I scan up and show the scoreboard. Cuse seemed to run their normal offensive sets through much of the first half. We did end up getting a glimpse of the 1-4-1 in the second half. It's possible they ran the 1-4-1 earlier on, and I had on a couple occasions had said, hey, is that the 1-4-1? Hard to tell with the beers mixed in and the bull crapping with a bunch of people in the stands, but we did definitely see 1-4-1 sets run more consistently over the course of the second half, thanks to our new offensive coordinator, so that was good. I dare say the offense looked a little bit better in the 3rd and 4th also. I've never been a big fan of the Syracuse old sets because whether it was by design or just the players doing it, they seem to dodge into space a lot, or not dodge into space, dodge into traffic, almost as part of the offensive set, it seemed, or the players were just doing it and Desko wanted to, pop their heads off like dandelions. But in the 3rd quarter, 4th quarter, the offense seemed to click a little bit more from there. It just looked a little bit smoother, I think, with the 1-4-1 sets. That's just how I observed it. Maybe that's just wishful thinking, because I feel like Syracuse hasn't been as explosive offensively, especially in 6-on-6 sets. They've been very deliberate, but I feel like they would turn down opportunities to score by dodging into traffic as opposed to away from it. So thought the 1-4-1 looked good. Syracuse midline. Talk about these guys, Curry, Dordevic, and Trimboli, all on their line together, and they looked pretty damn solid through the contest. All of them, I believe, had 2 goals in the contest. I'll get down to the stats here in a little bit, but I know that I know Curry. I know all 3 of them did score, though, I believe. But it's going to be a rough line to stop. I mean, who do you put the pole on? Do you put 2 poles on them? Possibly, because all 3 of them are accomplished dodgers. All 3 of them can snipe from out top. That is going to be a very difficult line to contend with, mixed with the Syracuse attack line, because all 3 Syracuse attackmen are dodgers. So when you look at that first midfield line and the first attack line for Syracuse, Scanlan, the guy wearing number 22, who was an All-American last year as a freshman, he's the guy that is probably the least accomplished dodger on the field amongst that group. Now, maybe not once you start tying in the midfielders, because Scanlan is a decent dodger at the midfield, but Scanlan is an opportunistic dodger. Scanlan's typically not your one dodge unless he's seeing that there's no help. Scanlan typically is your 2 dodge. You get your 1 dodge down an alley, ball goes to X, comes back up to him on a wing, and he dodges underneath, which he did in this game. His first goal of the game that he scored, you may have already seen it. The highlights aren't going to match up with what I'm talking about here if you're watching this on YouTube. But his first goal as a Syracuse Orangeman was him dodging from the right wing on the attack underneath his defender. As I said, he's very, very very capable dodger, especially at getting underneath. And it was a second dodge. It was the second dodge off the set where the help isn't necessarily there to get there. So that's what you're going to see out of Chase Scanlan. And in my interview, I actually interviewed Paul Carcaterra yesterday, and we talk a little bit about Syracuse and Scanlan and the number 22. And in that, he says a similar thing, and I'm not going to blow up what he says. I'll put that podcast out, by the way, tomorrow, my interview with Paul Carcaterra. That'll be Thursday's episode. I'm coming at you a day late today because I had camera trouble yesterday. My computer updated and it gave me issues. So back to this, though. So the second line for Syracuse, though, they didn't look bad either. As I said, Dordevic got some runs with them early, but Syracuse worked a lot of midfielders in. But that second line, I think it included Mangan, Lipka, and I'm not sure who else. Troy Lauder, I see he scored too. So anyway, second line for Syracuse has a really deep midfield. That's what we're going to find. Whether they end up breaking up the trio in the first line to give both lines insane depth, I'm not sure what they're going to do. Maybe that was why they ran Dordevic with that second line a little bit. But either way, Syracuse easily are going to be able to put 6 midfielders offensively on the field that can just torch people. But that first line is going to be something special. By the fourth, Syracuse still had their starting attack in, and that was where it opened up. It was 7-7. At one point, I think it was like 10-11 or maybe even 11-10 Denver. Syracuse ends up going on a run over the fourth, and they take a 15-11 lead. One of those goals scored by Scanlan. I think another one was a behind the back that Cook stuck from Rafis. I think a couple of the middies got in on the action, lighting things up from outside. So Syracuse took a 15-11 lead. We start walking out of the stadium with about 4:50 or so left in the contest. By the time we got to the gate, and I think there was a P or two involved in that process, it was 15-14. We got in the car and left, probably with about a minute left, and apparently Denver scored again to tie it up. Fitting, though. Everyone's like, oh, there's no OT. There's no OT in fall ball. Denver flew all the way out here. They don't need to be going into OT to figure out, just to lose a stupid fall ball scrimmage and feel like shit. Not that I care about how Denver feels or Syracuse in that capacity, but no OT in fall ball. That's ridiculous. So 15-15 was fitting. Both teams did a great job. Incredible turnout. More people at this game than some Division I games we'll see in the regular season. Certainly it could have even been more people at this game than at some Syracuse home games, and Syracuse typically fills it up pretty well for lacrosse standards. Syracuse saw 11 players score. Griffin Cook led the way, though, with a hat trick. So I loved seeing that. Huge recruit, had a decent season last year as a freshman, but had a hard time getting legitimate time and making it work. And I felt like he was possibly a reps guy, and it turns out that is accurate, and he played great. Brendan Curry, Chase Scanlan, and Jamie Trimboli each scored 2 goals. Siebold and Libka and Mangan each had once. Each scored once. Troy Lauder had a goal. Did I say Dordevic? I didn't put Dordevic in there, but I know Dordevic scored 2 goals at least, because he had a sweet toe drag goal also to go with his first goal of the game. That was a sweep from out top. So great turnout, great game. I was glad to have been there. I did drink a handful of beers, but nothing crazy. We didn't get nuts or anything, but the tailgate was decent. Gators, there's a pub up there that we went to pregame. If you're in Cortland and you're looking for a pub that has good bar food, a decent atmosphere, we went to Gators before the game. It's about 3 to 5 minutes from campus or so that was a good place to hit. We get to other action, where we get into here's where it's more of just a regular podcast, even though this is technically episode 1 of the Syracuse Lacrosse Podcast. In other action, Headstrong event at Hofstra. Lehigh murked Marist and Hofstra at Hofstra's own event. Lehigh, and that's surprising because Lehigh lost, I believe they lost their 4 top leading scorers. They were all listed as seniors anyway, so for them to murk teams offensively the way they did was impressive. Apparently Tommy Schelling, he was the one that was said to have torn it up through both of his scrimmages. He'll be a sophomore in 2020, and he put up 17 goals and I think it was 13 assists last year. As a freshman, my notes say 1E assists. That's obviously not accurate, so I'm thinking it was he either had 17 goals and 13 or maybe 14 helpers. Rutgers and Georgetown, they went down to the wire in a scrimmage. Hoyas getting a 16-15 win. I think that game-winning goal was scored within the last minute or so of their scrimmage. A bunch of contests. So I think Navy had gotten beat up by somebody. It's possible that Marist beat up Navy or this weekend as well, and there was a bunch of other games that went on. I don't have them all, but I wanted to throw out a couple of the scores that I'd seen when I was making these notes here. All in all, though, Syracuse, they did a hell of a job. Denver as well. Everybody that I talked to, all the coaches that we talked to, they thanked the Denver staff and said they did a great job with the clinic that went on beforehand. So it would be awesome if they started doing something like this more consistently. This is a Cortland's alumni weekend, so if they could put something like this together more often for these types for Syracuse, it was great to be able to see Syracuse play and not have to drive that extra 30 to 45 minutes up to the Dome. But moral of the story, I had a good time. That is it. Be sure to come back tomorrow, because tomorrow I'm going to put up the interview with Paul Carcaterra, just about a 35-minute phone interview or so, and it's not your typical bouncing stupid questions off of people and listening to him ramble. So we play a game called, I guess I wouldn't call it a game, but we do a thing where I make him pick between 2 people, like as if he was doing a pickup game. So he's going to pick between some players. Who would he like? Who would he take over who? We're going to do Casey and Ryan Powell, Casey and Mike Powell, a couple of midfield selections from this year. And then I do some Anish and Quint banter with him, making him pick between those 2 a little bit. So it's a little bit different than your normal interview, and that was kind of the goal of it all. But he was gracious enough to sit down and talk to me. So be sure to come back tomorrow, Thursday. If you're watching this today, Wednesday, be sure to come back tomorrow, Thursday, and watch the Paul Carcaterra interview. But that is it. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Best thing you can do for us to spread the word, share the podcast with others. If you comment down below, you can get entered to win a pair of Rampage Lacrosse shorts. We'll probably do the drawing by episode 3, 5 or so of the Syracuse Lacrosse Podcast. If you needed team gear or whatnot, you can go to LaxFactor.com. You can get swag, apparel, random t-shirts, shorts. We do team gear as well, so hit LaxFactor.com, and that is it.